The best truckers, the ones who survive, who thrive, who turn the job into a corner or career, a business, a future. They don't play the game, the blame game. They take ownership. All this and more on the Grumpy Couch. How's everybody doing today? I'm glad you all are here. Glad you all are joining Grumpy's Couch, and hopefully we'll have an exciting show again this Sunday. We're going to be diving into talking about different type of jobs that people have had that have either taken advantage of you while you work there, or treat you fairly okay while you're there, and then all of a sudden, whenever they feel they don't need you any longer, they just throw you away like yesterday's news, because they think you're just replaceable, like I guess a number, and it's sad because I worked really hard for this wonderful company. At least I believed it was a wonderful company, small business. I took my time on helping that business grow. I took that time to um, thrive to where we could be there. And I'll be honest with you, this company done a lot for me when I needed them, and I truly thought it was going to be where I should be. But and unfortunately, turns out it wasn't for me. And I'll talk more about it as we go along. But I just want to see how many people here actually would put in the comments on what they've experienced through the years of working at different places and how they were treated. And you don't have to go in and mention the names or anything like that. I don't expect that. I just would like to hear your stories and share them with me. So stay tuned to the end of the show and you'll find out more. And that's dive right into it. I believe my co-host is here. If you'd like to come aboard
Heidi ho,
somewhere.
my friends. Heidi ho, my friends. How are we doing today? Life is good. Life is even better when you learn a lesson. So
That's right.
glad to see everybody here. Glad to know everybody in the audience is at least willing to participate. We want to teach everyone the value of research. It always pays to take the extra time to look at reviews, to look at things said, to look at even some of the things that you don't really see in black and white. Because a lot of times there's a lot of things you will miss. And the story that Grumpy has today, I think, will well illustrate exactly what happens when you miss those dark recesses of hidden information. When you work your ass off and try to better someone's market share, when you try to better someone's image, you know, in the end, what's it really worth? Is it worth your time? Is it worth your sweat and your blood? Well, the result comes out in the end when really are you carrying that with you? Is it something that you can't recreate? And furthermore, how much responsibility are you taking by doing just that? The way he opened it was talking about the blame game. A lot of
Hmm.
us claim to know more than we do. We do that for an image sake. So when it doesn't work out the way we picture it, are we the type of people to sit back and blame others for our failings or our shortcomings? Or are we the type of people to learn why things happen the way they did and then move on to better ourselves in the future? I think that's a very important way of looking at things. But Grumpy, it's sure your show. I'm not going to take over.
Well, I
Do what you got to do.
I was trying to say something similar, but of course, this man over here with more experience than I on doing broadcasting and stuff helps me out quite a lot, and I appreciate it very much. But
Mhm.
he did bring in a good point whenever he started talking about how people are blame game and how you're fairly treated and things. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The company I was with, like I was saying, is a very good company as far as they will help make you make you some money if you run a lot. They will
Mhm.
help you get home usually as a rule if you live around in their area every weekend,
Yeah.
unless of course you want to run OTR for
Hmm.
them. I was on basically what they call the regional board, and I was home every weekend as a rule, unless something couldn't be arranged to get me home, and it happens. That's
Yep.
trucking. That's what a good friend of mine says. But it's very hard whenever you look at writing and it says one thing on it, and you call them up, you discuss this stuff with a recruiter,
Mhm.
and I look at as recruiters nowadays after all these years of being out here as salesmen. They're very good at what they do. They will sell you on it. They will make you a believer. But until
Yep.
you go to work for that company, you really don't know what you're getting into.
No.
So the best thing I could say, just as Boss Man was saying, research, research, research. You know, look at the ratings. Talk with other drivers that have worked there before.
Yeah.
Get a little more information on their feelings. That doesn't mean you make your decision solely because of that, because you are yourself and you will make your own decisions.
Yep.
But I will say that up until the point whenever I was relieved of duty, the company actually seemed to be fairly good. I done what I could for that company
Mhm.
by helping with my part, which was doing proper pre trips, and post trips, and
Yep.
making sure that I was doing my part.
Hmm.
I can't say that for other drivers. Other
Hmm.
drivers or themselves, it would be nice if everybody
Yeah.
followed right down my same footsteps. But
Yep. Yep.
you know, with that being said, just wondering if there's anybody down here that I have in my couch potatoes that might have a little bit to add to some story they have working
All right.
for companies.
Well, I'm going to add.
Um,
I'm going to add one of your good friends on the panel, and let's start the show. I think with a bunch of positives because I think with
yeah,
myself, with you, um, and with whom I'm about to add, I think a lot of positive learned things can be had because I
that's
think
right.
the three of us on the initial start. I'm going to add a fourth here in a minute. Um, we have a lot of experience, so let's start the show out on positives. First of all, Grumpy, what the company you just worked for, what are its best assets? What do you remember that you liked best with the company you just
I would
came
say it
to?
was it was being able to get home pretty much every weekend. That was the best reason, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I chose to go there, because of my current situation that I was going through with family and stuff. I needed to be
Yep.
home more,
Yep.
and you know, for what it's worth,
Mhm.
I would usually, if as long as I ran hard all week, I made decent pay. But with trucking, it's hard to do that because just like
Yep.
yourself, boss man, if some weeks are better than others.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Personally, the company that I work for, I think the most valuable asset that is with the company that I'm currently with is the experience that backs them. They take the time, even with all that. They don't brag, they don't boast, they don't say anything that isn't true at the moment. But despite that, they also go the extra mile of making sure that if I don't know something, they explain it to me. They show me why, and they're actually willing to go as far as needed to make sure I understand fully what's going on. They are completely above board, and I think all major carriers should learn by that example. And
Yeah.
I really
And
wish from everything I heard that the carrier you just worked with was the same way.
yeah,
But
sugar coating is what I call that. Is
yeah,
whenever
yeah,
they start putting things on there that's just
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah. Let's talk to another fellow who's got some similar experiences. Gilligan, welcome to the show. My friend, you work jobs a lot. I've heard a lot about your experiences. What are some of the best things you remember about the jobs that you had and currently have now?
I have like you were saying, I have done a lot of different jobs in this career.
Yeah,
I
that's what they
I've
are. They
done
call like you say it. Yeah, that's what they are. Their jobs.
I have been anywhere from box van or dry box to reefers to construction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've been back and forth with one company. They've always done me good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just got to a point to where I was gone all the time, never was home because
It
it
works
was
until it
seasonal
doesn't.
work.
Yeah, it works
Yeah,
until it doesn't. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I enjoyed
What
that company.
without actually giving up a company name, what was the best job you've ever had in trucking?
Mm.
If
I
you
would
could
have to
describe it,
say,
if you could describe it in one sentence, what would it be?
The pros.
I've well, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, the best. That's what the question meant anyway.
so
Yeah,
the
what would be the
that
best job?
company that I was talking about would be the one I work for up in North Dakota.
Okay, okay.
It was a very small company,
Mhm.
and he cared about his employees. I mean,
He was
there was
small enough.
nothing
You said
sugar coated.
yeah,
Yeah,
he was small enough to count. Okay, well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I mean, and then I come to
Score
this company that I'm
score
at
one for
now,
small carriers. Yeah.
and it's another small company. I mean, they don't
So if
beat around the
that's,
bush.
Mhm.
if let me add this, if that was one of your best companies you believe that you've worked for, what was the best thing about working for that company? Just like with mine,
Yep. There you go. Good question. He's got to really think about that one.
I see smoke
Well,
coming out of his ears.
Yeah, yeah.
well,
Making them headphones work.
it was small enough to where if I needed something, I needed something done, I needed to go home for some reason, I was always able to go home.
Mhm.
He always made those accommodations,
Mhm.
as
Ah,
I will call
okay.
it.
Okay, that works. Let's bring on somebody with a lot more experience. It'll be interesting to see what his answer is going to be.
Yes.
All right. So, good day to Poet, the man from the north. When it comes to your experiences in trucking, my man, give me the one company without mentioning the company name. That's the caveat. What would be the best company you remember working for, and what was the best thing about it?
This would be about 40 years ago.
Wow.
Uh, they had a flatbed division, or
Hmm.
what we called the chain gang,
Hmm.
reefers, dry box.
Hmm.
They were located in central Canada,
Okay.
and I worked out of basically a chain gang office in southern Ontario.
Okay.
Uh, they left me alone to do my job.
Hmm.
On occasion, they would call me for emergency work
Hmm.
to go rescue owner operators or company drivers that were broke down, and they were carrying a load of expedited freight or
Yep.
DHL or whoever, one of the big expedited package companies.
Sure. Sure. Yep.
So I'd have to sometimes bobtail 1,000 miles
Yep.
to go rescue a driver on a weekend that I was supposed to have off.
Yep. Yep.
And that was a good company to work for. They had lots of benefits.
Hmm.
Um, it finally got to the point where I had booked a weekend off for a family function, and dispatch says, "Well, you can't go home. We have an oversized load going to Chicago.
Mm.
You have 5 truckers sitting there. Why can't they do it?"
True.
Well, no,
All
you're
right.
more experienced.
So, so that sounds more like the cons of it. But I mean, what was the pro to it, which is what you really liked and enjoyed about working at that
Yeah, I
place?
was just about to ask that. Yeah. Yeah.
They left me alone to do my job. They knew I could handle it.
There you go.
Okay, so they didn't micromanage you, so that's a plus right
No,
there.
Yep.
no,
Yep.
no, not at all.
Yep.
The pay was decent at the time.
Yep.
The benefits were
Now,
good. Go
now
ahead.
I know that things 40 years ago, if I'm reading the time you said, things right. But let's go around the table and let's ask a simple question. I'll start with you, Poet. 40 years ago, it probably wasn't as easy as picking up your cell phone and looking at reviews. But of
No,
all the things you heard about that company, did you later come to find anything different than what you were told when you had been there a while and we're finally comfortable in your position? In other words, did you ever find that what you were told getting into the job was different than what you experienced being there?
actually, no. Until
Good.
that last load when I was told you either take it or you're done.
All right, all right, good. Now, Gilligan, I assume you have probably you're more recent in your experience. You've probably been able to look up reviews, do research, figure out more of the things that Poet back in his day couldn't. So my question is different to you. If you look back on that job you just described moments ago and gave us all the good things about it, now that job, thinking about it, what are all the things that you remember researching about that later were different than when you actually got in the job? What would those things be? Or do you
Let's
even
see.
find that happen?
I actually didn't know about the company that I was talking about. I was actually suggested to me by a family member that worked there already.
Okay.
So I really didn't do any reviews for that company.
So oddly enough, you didn't really research much. You just went to work for him. Kind of word
I
of
went to
mouth
work
thing.
for him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So a
All
lot
right.
of the companies I have worked for,
Yeah.
most of them were, a lot of them besides when I first started was word of mouth.
Okay. So, all right. To the man that runs the show, talk about your experience. Why is your experience so much different when it comes to what you did to find the company? What now are you thinking was truth versus reality? I mean, because first of all, tell us what is the best thing about the job? I mean, everybody else on the panel has answered that question, but you. But then go off and say, okay, what was different from what you knew to what you found out? Audio's messed up. You got to unmute yourself, Grumpy.
Sorry about that. The best thing, the best thing that I'd say that caught my eye to want me to even try to put a application in with this company was whenever I was reading it stated, regional area run Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, and that was primarily it, and a little bit of Louisiana occasionally. You know, 5, 6 states right here.
Mhm.
That was a big when I was like, I've done all 47 states. I haven't been to a few, but I thought, it's time I find something where I'd be home more often. And then the other thing that caught my eye was it says home every weekend, guaranteed. I
Mhm.
thought, okay, guaranteed home every weekend. All right, there it is. That bought me. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, time to call this company up. So
Okay.
I called the company up. I find out, yes, that's what we do. Yes, you'll be in a truck. You'll come down here. Your orientation is like a day and a half, and then you'll be out on the road and making money. And I'm like, okay, all right, get me a ticket, and I'll be headed your way. So it's like I said, what bought me on it was I was to be home every weekend, and I only ran certain states. No biggie. Sounds great. Just what most drivers, especially with my years, most of them want. Not all, but most of them want because we're looking to be more home. We want to be home more often, especially if we have a family.
Yeah.
And I've been out here almost 25 years, and I just was looking for something that was better because I had a lot of family things going on, and I needed to take care of it. And this was perfect. But
Did at any point your job search, when you found the company in question, did the company's expectations of you and your current experience, did any of that match or seem to not match at the time when you first got it?
the
In other
pay
words,
rate seemed to
did they
not
treat you?
match.
Yeah, I mean, I was the question more or less. I probably should have asked differently. Did it seem like you weren't paid enough? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of what I
that's what I was just saying. I mean, the pay rate was not something that a driver with my experience should accept. Unfortunately, like I said, I was looking for something that fit what I was looking for, which is to be home more often
yeah,
and not
yeah,
travel as far.
correct,
So sometimes you have to accept things that's not real good.
right,
I mean, their deadhead pay compared to their loaded pay, big difference.
yeah,
Um, and most companies you work for, it's the same all the way around. You get paid
right,
same loaded or empty,
yeah.
but this company does not.
Everybody watching this show probably don't know that much about me, but just to kind of reveal a similar scenario where I'm concerned. I was working with, and I won't mince words. I'll say I got a few years experience working with Warner. Everybody in their time frame has probably worked with them just for training purposes or just to get their leg or their foot, in the door, that kind of thing. But my recitation isn't about them. I worked with them long enough to get enough experience and then moved on. But my moving on is by means why I mentioned this, because in doing that, I decided I'd had enough experience at that point in time. I wanted to become an owner operator. And to me at the time, the best thing to do was research. So I decided, well, I'm going to look into a company I've heard a lot about. And I did just that. I looked at, several reviews. I looked at several good things and bad things, public information reports, that kind of thing. I didn't look at every single thing, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't making the worst mistake possible. And I did just that. And to further explain, that wound up being Landstar. Now, that wasn't a job. That was a corporate entity that was willing to take on somebody who wanted to be an owner operator. A lot of people work with them. They really are an excellent company. They have a lot of positives. They do have negatives. So look into them if you're wanting to know more information. Form your own opinion. Don't take my word for it. But I'll tell you, the one thing I liked best about that company was the backing that they give you. Anything you needed, they were able to and capable of giving it to you. The problem is that always wasn't possible. There were some things they could not help you with, like specific advice on how to run your business. They could not help you with. Specific direction on exactly how to, you know, start your LLC and do specific carrier related things. They couldn't tell you any of that. They could give you the infrastructure. They could give you the fuel card. They could give you the load board. Well, that's it. That's all. I mean, financial backing, they had all that. But if you were looking for specifics back then on how to start your own business and run as a business capacity owner, which is what they do, they couldn't help that. You had to take that on yourself. That's where I said earlier, research is important, but that's kind of, I think, overcomplicating Grumpy's story, because he was just simply an employee driving for a company with a number of carrier or employees working with them. Um, but I digress to say everything has a purpose. If you do enough research and if you put enough forethought and looking into a company, you can find out a good deal of things before you even sign on the dotted line. And I think today's society, that's what a lot of people fail to do. And then you wind up with circumstances. Grumpy's going to relate to you. And I'm sure everybody down in this panel can relate to, you need to be careful. I mean, honestly, take the time. You might be giving them something because you, for example, to use your uh, scenario, Grumpy, you might be wanting that frequent, flexible home time. You might be wanting that flexible schedule. But now getting that, what are you giving up? What's the price for that? There's always a price on the other end, and I think as we move on through the latter half of the show, we'll discuss some of those things, but there's a cost with everything. And one of the costs I learned with Landstar is that unless you prepare and plan carefully, you can run yourself into a hole. And that is true, particularly with maintenance issues. And that's what did me in. One thing I learned valuably is that if you don't pay attention to maintenance and you're not on top of everything, not just with the DVIRs, but with the money you spend, the money you save, you're done. You don't even need to continue trying, because without the proper forethought in how to maintain that truck and think ahead on that rainy day situation, you're just waiting to fail. It's not when you'll fail, it's how you fail. And boy, usually when it happens with a bang. And in my case, it did.
Yep. And then,
Look,
and
there,
also with what you were doing there, you were actually getting your feet wet as an owner op. So
yeah,
it's a big difference
yeah,
whenever you
yeah.
decide
Oh,
to
and I
go
learned
all
a lot.
in.
I learned a lot, trust me.
Yes.
But I don't know if I interrupted your thoughts
No, no, no.
on the good that that company did, but one of the things I didn't hear you talk much about was the maintenance. So we'll talk on that more here shortly.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but you did a lot of good for that company. When it
I
come to
believe I
maintenance,
did.
I
I honestly
remember
do.
I remember hearing you talk at great length about the things that you were doing. Um,
Yes.
Give us an example. What were some of the things you thought about that were important in terms of maintenance and safety?
Well, and one of the biggest issues that my company actually has, and is not near as bad now since I'm, worked on it all that time, is our trailers. A lot of our trailers were getting neglected on a lot of the maintenance. And partly to blame on that is they just couldn't keep mechanics
Mhm.
because they were overwhelmed and they would leave.
Okay.
And I understand that, but the biggest issue, like I said, I would go and drop a good trailer somewhere,
Mhm.
and then I would pick up another load from that place, and that trailer there'd be something wrong. Either the brakes were out of adjustment, a
Mhm.
light out. I mean,
Simple
it's just
stuff,
simple little,
not big.
yeah, simple
Yeah,
little things that could be fixed easily.
yeah,
Um, and that would hold me up, and that was one of my biggest issues with this company.
yeah.
Well, most of the time I didn't have a problem with getting that taken care of. Most
Right.
of the time, it took a phone call. They say, hey, take it to the Loves down there, get it fixed.
Yeah.
And, once that's done, update us and head on. Some of that stuff was very easy, but if I had to wind up bringing it to a terminal to get certain things fixed, because sometimes I'd run across trailers that were really needing some work. I
Yeah.
mean, we're
Yeah.
talking it had to be there for a couple of days to get taken care of, because if it would just be one driver hauling that trailer around all the time and he kept a good maintenance checklist on it, it wouldn't be such a problem. But when you start getting a lot of trailers that drop here, pick up here, drop here, and then you don't have drivers that are willing to make sure that they're keeping up with this and make sure that it's safe and legal, then someone like myself that that's his pet peeve,
Oh,
is to make sure that
most companies that I know of are abundantly transparent when it comes to
yes.
we need to follow the law. Most companies I work, and I can honestly speak for three companies I've worked for in my life. All three companies, and I'm not including my current company, by the way. Three companies I worked for all made note, and very important notes at that, that you must follow the law. The law states that you must complete a DVIR at the start and at the end of your shift. Now, some companies were just do it at the beginning, post trips, not a big deal. Everybody was flexible on that. But the law says you have to perform a pre trip and you have to complete a DVIR. Now, it's done differently. Some people do it with paper forms, others do it through the ELDs, whatever the case is. Okay. But all the companies I've worked for have all been the same. They all require the same. Now, if you're watching this on a replay, let us know how many times you've worked for companies that did not give a crap. And we can say with certainty that there are still companies out there that do not give a crap. They fudge it, they make it look good. and after the fact, re-edit and redo things with logs that should not be done. We know it. It's there. But
Yep.
that's part of being cheap. And that's part of some of the problems with today's companies. Guys, Gilligan, how many companies have you worked for that would kind of fall in that? Don't mention names, but just give us a number. How often has that been an issue or a worry with you?
One.
Mhm.
One company, and it's like I said, it was with that construction company where you're always.
Pressed for time. Got to get here. Got to go there. Got to do it now.
Well, it's mostly the roads that we worked on. I mean, it'll just beat them trucks to death.
Yeah, but
So
think
it's
about
hard
it. What's
to
the
keep them
excuse?
upright.
Think about it. What's the excuse? Why would you drive an unsafe piece of equipment? Whether it's the truck you're driving or the trailer, as in Grumpy's case, that you're picking up or dropping. Why would you drive and operate something unsafe?
It wasn't that it was completely unsafe. It was safe to drive, but they do have their problems of breaking things on it.
Without a DVIR, how does one know that?
Hmm.
I mean, Poet, I
We
mean,
keep
you're
Very
yeah,
good point. Very good
yeah,
point.
yeah, not to cut you off, Gilligan. Poet, you're the old school. I mean, DVIRs. I mean, they changed at all in 40, 50 years? I mean, come on. They are today, I pretty much think, the same way they were when you started, and
That
probably more utilized.
they have changed over the years.
Mhm.
There's been stuff added.
Yeah, well, obviously,
Okay,
yeah.
ABS, um, yeah, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Coming back on the question you asked Gilligan,
Mhm.
why would you drive a trailer, okay, like that?
Mhm.
Because if you don't have a job. And it comes back to grumpy.
Well, it comes back to the words toxic work environment. Now, think about it. If you're expected to perform, operate, and maintain a job status because of a toxic work environment with unsafe equipment,
Hmm.
what happens? What happens is the very point Millie makes here. There's no excuse or reason because it will be your fault when you get stopped.
Yes,
But
I
to even further her point, it will be your fault when someone gets hurt. That's
I
usually what happens.
I agree.
Yeah.
Coming back to Grumpy's
Mhm.
situation with all the trailer issues that he had,
Mhm.
and all the trailers that he rode up,
Right?
uh, you were costing the company money.
No, no, I don't think
They,
so.
but if
I agree with why you're saying that, Poet, but
okay,
in reality, no, you aren't.
no, and I understand,
Mhm.
but at a certain point, okay, and it's no different than the last job I had.
Mhm.
At a certain point, the company is starting to consider you toxic
Mhm.
to their bottom line.
Do you really
Well,
think so? Do you really think
Yes,
so? I mean, because
yes, I
honestly,
do.
I am of this mindset, and Grumpy, you can defend yourself if you want, but I am of this mindset. If you're stating the obvious becomes, so and I've said this to you, Grumpy, so disagree me if you want. I've said this to be the obvious. If you're that blatant that you expect any of your drivers to pick up, operate, and maintain status quo with unsafe equipment, you deserve what you get. Now, that's just bottom line what my opinion is, because when it comes down to it, you can either pay now on the good side when it's cheaper, when it hasn't hurt anyone, and when it's quick to fix, or you can wait until A, it becomes a DOT issue, or B, someone gets hurt. And then Lord knows how big that bill gets. Lord knows how much that's going to cost. Which would you do? Would you
Exactly.
do this or would you wait and do this?
A
I
lot of
mean, and I
companies,
remember
a
several
lot of
conversations,
companies will
not to
do
cut you
this.
off, Poet. I remember several conversations I had with you when
Hmm.
where you, Grumpy, were justifying, do I, don't I, should I, shouldn't I? That
yep,
example I just said is the very thing I remember telling you. You can
yep,
get it now while it's not really a big deal, or you can let it go, let the company worry about it, and then you'll be reading about it on the 6 o'clock news. I mean, there you
A
go.
good example of that, poet, was, I will straight up say it. There was one time I picked up a trailer that only one brake worked on the whole trailer. And I had to take this thing to the nearest service place, which was over 2 hours away.
Mhm.
Had it been loaded, I mean, technically I shouldn't have took it anyhow, but had it been loaded, I would have refused it totally. But it was an
Mhm.
empty trailer. So I agreed to go ahead and take it straight to that place to be fixed, and that was it. I did not want to mess with it otherwise. And I told him that. I said, and I'm not going to make a habit of this either.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's just how I feel about that. I mean, I don't like things that's going to cause safety, not just for myself, but I look out for others that are out there on the road,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
families. I mean, Lord help me if I was to ever cause an accident because I'm pulling faulty equipment, and then
Right.
I survive and that family does not. I
Well,
couldn't live with that.
and
I
then to think
agree.
about, the obvious. If you fail for whatever reason to diligently report a problem on a post trip, or let's say a
Mhm.
trailer you dropped, and then it later came back on you through investigative purposes or legal documents that
Mhm.
you did not spot or report a problem that later caused somebody else's injury or death.
Hmm.
It would be almost like you were at the accident scene. They really would.
That's right.
And it would be
It
the
would.
same thing as being the cause of the accident. So
Yep.
it's just really no excuse. I mean, and I brought up what I did because I remember a lot of times you and I, Grumpy, we were battling back and forth on conversations. Um, and what struck me, I mean, honestly, this is the half of the show that really bites me, but I gotta mention this. I mean, everything about this company was great up until I started talking with you and learned exactly how things actually shaped with the DVIRs. Do you care to elaborate on that? Do you know what I'm talking about, Grumpy? I mean, because for the longest time, what they did versus what you actually changed.
Yeah.
You want me to elaborate on that?
To be honest with you, when I first started with this company, they weren't enforcing DVIRs, and that gradually started changing because I started getting the safety department
Mhm.
on my side, which
Yeah,
that's a plus.
yeah.
And they were fighting for me left and right because they saw, look, this guy is a valuable asset to this company because he seems to know what he's doing. He
Yeah.
knows safe stuff. So we need to get this stuff
One of
fixed. This will
one of those
also
ti
help
one of
us
those
in the long
times
run.
when your 25 years actually benefited you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I had probably several that were backing me, that liked me, that appreciated what I'd done for the company in there. I even had the owner acknowledged me and appreciated it. Yes, I'm sure he knew it did cost a few dollars to get them trailers fixed. But you know what? In the long run, I think the man was actually looking at, should I pay $10,000 to fix this trailer, or should I pay over $100,000 in possible fines and everything else? So,
Or more. Or more.
yeah, exactly.
Lord knows
And
how
and
many
or
millions would have been associated if that problem later killed somebody.
mm,
But
that's right.
who wants to gamble on that? Who has the money
Exactly.
to gamble on that? You know? I mean, I tell you the whole reason I bring all this up because I mean, we as truckers we banter about with a lot of discussions, and one of the ones I remember partaking in, maybe it was you, maybe it was somebody else we'd talked to, but one of the points that was brought up, and Pellet, you just started kind of going down that rabbit hole a moment ago. That's kind of why I interrupted you, not purposely, but purposely. I have a reason. And one of those entertaining ideas that was bantered about was you having a complex because of what Poet mentioned a moment ago. You felt like you were costing them money,
Mhm.
and that was the reason why the relationship was cut. Now, I have some negative thoughts on that. Okay. if you as a person, whether you're an independent contractor or an actual hourly employee or whatever, if you are doing your job, it should not matter whether or not you're costing anyone money. If you're doing your job, that is.
Mhm.
If you're doing what's required and you're doing it to the best of your ability, then what difference should it make whether it costs anyone anything? The idea that you, as an owner of a company, take seriously the idea of a safe work environment that's free of toxicity, that's free of intimidation and politics, that should overtake the concern of whether or not one person points out a safety issue in either a department or a piece of equipment or any of that. Because all of that should be thought well ahead of time, planned out well ahead of time, written down, thought about before the problem occurs. And it appears to me like the situation you went through, Grumpy, that never happened. And even though you feel bad because you pointed out certain flaws in a system that needed to be fixed, you feel like that's what led to the departure of you from the company. That I don't see that. I see you as an individual that did what you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
I think you did the right thing. I
Mhm.
think you were on point with pointing out, hey, this needs to be fixed. This needs to be dealt with. And there are flaws in the setup that exists in work environment. Now, you can disagree or agree. That's, it's your show,
No, no,
but
no.
that's
Actually,
your,
I think you said it really good right there. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head with it. I mean, or however that said. But to add to
Hit the
that,
head.
there's a lot of Karens out there,
Mhm.
and these Karens, there's a few of them that worked at the company I was at, and they're all over.
Mhm.
Well,
And
for
by
everybody.
Karens, I hope everybody understands that's a term of something. It doesn't mean that person's name.
It's a descriptive
Just to get that
term. Yeah.
straight.
You know,
Yes.
we don't
Anyhow,
do PC here, so if you're PC, sorry, we'll see the numbers drop to zero. But yeah, we don't do PC here. I'm sorry. Karen is a descriptive term to elaborate on somebody that is never satisfied. Anyway, keep going.
exactly.
Yeah.
But at this company, I knew there was a few of them in there that
Yeah.
just absolutely did not like me, and
Yeah.
because I believe it was the planners, a few of them, because they would have to, whenever I'd say, hey, this trailer's not legal, it's got to be fixed.
Mhm.
This is how bad it is.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it caused that load to be late. That really upset them because, that just took their day and threw them away because they're like, oh, now we got to call a customer. Now we got to do this. Now we got to do that. Well, excuse me, but I'm not the one that loaded that trailer. I'm not the one that dropped that trailer. So therefore, don't blame it on me. But it seemed like they would go back to me on this every
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
eventually, they found a way to weed me out,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it happened.
Yeah. Go ahead,
How
Poet.
are we doing? How are we doing? We're just moving all over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We used to have 3 color tags for our trailers.
Yeah. Common
Gre-
system.
Green for this trailer is reserved.
Mhm.
Yellow for this trailer needs work, and
Yep.
red for nobody's taking this trailer.
Yeah.
I used to bring trailers in,
Yeah.
okay, to the yard, to the
Mhm.
shop. Used to walk into the shop and used to fill out a big yellow cry sheet,
Yep.
hang it on the mechanic's wall,
Yep.
mark it on my DVIR.
Yep.
Once I mark it on my DVIR,
Yep.
the company has 2 weeks to fix it.
Yep.
The next morning, I would go back in, and that trailer would be gone, and the yellow tag would be laying on the ground.
Yep. There are a lot of
Uh,
people, think about it. Why would that happen? Because they're trying to shortcut something. They made a decision and they needed that trailer, and that's a shame. That's somebody shortcutting a system that was put in place to prevent a problem.
But so
Billy.
who is it? Is it the driver? Is
Well,
it dispatch?
yeah.
Is it the mechanics? Who the hell is it?
Or
Because like that used
is
to.
it the
It's a big
or is
circle.
it? Yeah, I was going to say, is it the entire environment in itself? Go ahead, Gilligan. You were going to add something a minute ago.
I mean, it's like I say. I mean, whenever I've been with companies, they've hold a high standard for maintenance. Grumpy's known me for a while with a few of these companies.
Mhm.
Yep.
I've like even with this company, if I have a problem, I usually get to the yard and it gets
Yep.
fixed.
Yep.
Like the guy I work for in North Dakota,
Mhm.
it's hard to do that because most of the time you're 3 hours away from anybody.
Yep.
Mhm.
So you have to learn in those positions of what can you fix to get it by to the shop.
Yep.
Right. Mhm.
So
Sometimes
that's always
something
the
I'm-
question.
that's acceptable. That because you got to get it back.
Yes.
You got to get repairs, obviously.
S-
But
yeah,
That's
something I'm
old-
going to add to this.
That's old school.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Grumpy.
Okay, I was always blabbered to saying, "Oh, go to work for a small company. Small companies are the best. Small companies will take care of you the best. They'll get things done and all that." That's not true.
Nope.
Small companies may know you by name. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
But will they take good care of you?
Mhm.
Not always true. Just because they're a
I
small
think-
carrier doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take 100% good care of you.
And there lies the important part of where I opened the show. Just
Mhm.
because you hear a particular company, fill in the blank, however you want, is a good company to work for. Do your research. Do your diligence to make sure that this could be a company you could spend the rest of your life working for.
Right?
How do we know that? Well, you know that by the research. You know that by the experiences related to you. You know that by just common sense tells you if people working there now have been there 30 years, good chance you could be too. But if everybody working there is somebody that's been there for the last 4 years, or maybe with less than that, a year or two, what's the chance you're going to last longer? Not very good.
Right.
And a lot of people don't look at stuff like that today. Had you looked and seen where there was an extremely high turnover, Grumpy, on this particular company, thinking back, what would you have done?
If I'd known that that was basically a big revolving door system, I probably would have went on and moved on and tried to find something different.
Yep.
But until you've actually got your foot in there and find out these things by, working there, that's something you really don't know right away.
Yeah.
However, I know everybody that are drivers out here pull into truck stops. They see the truck. The truck is a big rolling billboard.
Yeah.
So all they got to do, if that driver is friendly enough
Yep,
and will
yep.
speak to them, they can say, "Hey, how good is that company? What's the perks to it? What's the cons to it?
Yeah.
Can you give me a lowdown? I'm interested."
Yep.
And just tell them the truth. Don't
Yeah.
lie to them. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell them the
Right.
truth.
Yeah.
Let them make their own decision after you talk to them, because
Yeah.
I'm sure that obviously they're going to be smart enough to do that. And
Exactly.
before we get too further along, we've got us another couch potato that joined us. I
Yeah.
brought him in.
Yep.
Larry the Trucker, how are you, my friend?
Yeah.
What's up, guys?
Do you have anything you'd like to add to today's show in terms of experience, research, things not said? What would you like to add to this?
Yeah, without naming the
Ask
company.
questions. Ask
Yeah.
questions. Ask
Yeah.
questions.
Amen to that.
Ask.
Amen to that.
Ask. There's no dumb question to ask.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Well,
I
mean,
agree
you
with him because
you come recently from, and again, we're not mentioning names right now because we're keeping names out of it, keeping it neutral. You come from a position from a company not long ago that kind of falls into what we're talking about. You were sold on a program with that company only to find out not long after you started working there, things weren't what you were told. Do you want to elaborate? Again, without names, but you want to elaborate on that experience a little bit?
Well, I mean, everyone that knows me knows I was a lease purchase. So lease
Right,
purchase is the worst. They're bad.
right,
Every one of them.
right. Well, that's a debate for another video. But your
But
experience was
anyway,
related
yes.
to you in one way and discovered something totally different.
Well, I
Right.
gotta get out of here, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.
Gilligan,
All right,
glad you
Gilligan,
joined us.
thanks for coming
Be
to the
safe.
show, and we'll see you next time, brother. Be safe.
See you,
All
bro.
No, I mean, I remember your story be beyond the name and beyond the situation that I first learned when you and I first met. I mean, I thought it incredibly funny that you were told, for example, there was a particular rig that you were told you would never be able to touch, but yet that
There
rig
you
was
go.
in advertisements left, right, center, and Sunday, and
hmm
it was used as bait. So perfect. I think perfect anecdote for our discussion today. You
You
wound up.
guys are talking about mistress.
Yeah, well, whatever it was
Yeah.
called. Again, names escape me, but yeah, you were
Well, that
sold.
was my name for it, not anybody
Yeah,
else's.
I know. I'm just saying, you were sold on a package of what this particular company represented. But come to find out, when you're in the thick of it and you're getting paychecks and you're running loads and you're actually doing the job, oh crap, what did I get myself into? I remember you saying that, and you were like, shit, I don't think I like this. A number of other things were said, but
Right.
perfect example of what we're talking about. It's definitely not what
You
what
got
you
to do your homework.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
Like
right.
Grumpy said, I was listening when Grumpy was talking. If you see drive, like, I'm not giving names, but people used to come up to me when I was at my other company. Yeah, because you drive nice trucks.
Yeah,
Some on the outside, they're nice.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I think
But
everybody's truck is
at the
nice on
same
the outside.
time,
Let's
they
be
give
real
you a
here.
nice truck, and they give you a nice truck, but yet at the same time, they don't treat you worth a
Like a piece of
pile
crap.
of
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Once again, anybody joining us this late in the broadcast, if you're watching us on the replay, we're having discussion today about companies that are less than clear on what you're actually working for. Let us know in the comments below if you're watching us on the replay. We'd like to know, without naming names, if you've ever been lied to. If that's commonplace in the industry, if that's something you think needs to change, we'd like to hear from you. Certainly make Grumpy's couch a better place to sit at. Grumpy, I mean, everything you've described to me and everything I've witnessed over the years, with your experience with this company and everything you told me about your experience leads me to believe, just like you said, sometimes smaller companies aren't what they seem. They're usually the first
Mm-mm.
ones looked at, and they're usually the ones that are trusted the most. But in your
Mhm.
case, that turned to bite you in the butt.
Yes, exactly.
Uh,
That's exactly what it done.
so among the lying, can we keep the dispatchers out of it?
Well, dispatchers aren't 100% of the company. The company
No,
is,
I
No.
know.
yeah.
I know
And
that.
besides, dispatchers, who hasn't had a bad experience with dispatchers? So why even bring
Correct.
that up? I mean, it's
Yeah.
really,
There's
I've
good dispatchers, and then there's
there
bad
are
dispatchers too.
yeah,
I've
yeah, yeah.
I've had one or two in my career time that I've actually was like this with, because
Yep,
that one there did not micromanage me. They didn't
yep,
say, "Hey Frank, what are you doing today?" I mean, it was constantly, out there. So I I like that person. That person liked me. We got along great.
Mhm. Mhm.
He ran the heck out of me. I can guarantee I didn't sit still very long.
yep,
And those are the kind of dispatchers I like, or driver
Mhm.
managers as they're called.
yep.
But
Ooh.
there again, you've got to look at, is the freight right? Is the freight going to be worth running? Are you
Yep.
going to make the mileage? I mean, there's a lot to that.
Yep.
And that's another thing is with this company. I was told that we was going to be freight hot. It was,
Mhm.
turn and go, turn and go.
Yep.
We didn't have time to sit very long. Well, when I first worked for this company the first time around, that's the case. I mean, I was go, 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 go. I hardly sat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For some reason, when I came back after taking care of medical issues and stuff, everything went.
Now,
So
that important point to make, that is only your opinion. Would that be a safe assertion to make? Because I mean, you
Well-
don't know for a fact that their actual freight incoming to the company. You don't know what it was. You can just
I don't
assume
know
that you're-
100% exactly. I just know that I was not the only driver having this issue. I talked
Okay.
to several drivers that were having this issue. So
Yeah.
I would say that according to what I was told by inside sources,
Mhm.
that a lot of it had to do with, loads being late,
Yep.
equipment failures,
Yep.
and things like that. Well, I was trying to help get that fixed.
Mhm.
And, a lot of people saw it as a thorn in their side more than,
Yep.
a bushel of smelling good roses. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about everything you've been through, I mean, the dispatchers, as Poet pointed out a minute ago, they come and go in every company.
Mhm.
So they don't represent 100% of a driver's experience. They're the ones most utilized, of course, the most spoken to, and most, but they don't. They only represent a part of the problem or solution. Either way, it's not a problem or solution. But the biggest thing I think will or could make or break any company anywhere, and this is just my experience because this has been my experience, is safety. If you don't take safety seriously, okay, you're done. Hang
Mhm.
up. I mean, put the keys away, sell the truck, sell the assets. Don't even bother trying. Safety will do you in because, at the end of the day, you're either going to have a safety record, which you can look up publicly. You can see your
Mhm.
safer score. Every
Mhm.
company has one,
Yes.
and I recommend before you work with a company, look at that, see what that is, see how many violations, see what the ratio to downtime and all that is, out of service. All that's publicly available, because at the end of the day, I mean, if you don't look at that and you work for a company, you only deserve what you get. But in
Yes,
your
because
case,
with
go
that
ahead.
being said, what you just brought up, I actually worked for a company. I was hurting for a job really bad, so silly me, I just looked through and seen this one and they were hiring. I was like, all right, I'm gonna jump on it. I need to get it working. I got to get a paycheck coming in. Well, let's just put it this way. I was only making 10 cents more per mile than I did when I first started my career. And this was only about 5 years ago, roughly. And so I took this job, not knowing much about it. I jumped right into it. Equipment, trash. The company that they put me on with, they had such a horrible CSA score that we weren't even allowed to have a pre-pass
Mhm.
at all. So every scale house we had to pull into. After I discovered this and made one trip out for them and turned around, as I was coming back, I was like, this is terrible. This truck is leaking more oil than I can afford to buy. Of course, I got reimbursed, but it's just the idea. I started back and I called my dispatcher. I was like, dude, I can't do this. I'm sorry. Get me a load heading back to the terminal. I mean, and we're talking a small fleet. We're talking, he only had like 10 trucks.
Yeah.
And I was like, the pay's not worth it. No, I'm sorry. So, of course, he done me right. He liked me. So he got me back home. He begged me to stay, and so did the owner. I'm like, I'm sorry. I just can't. Just do me a favor. I'll take it out of my pay, but get me a rental car heading back home. And I left. I mean, I worked for that company a whole week and a half, and that happens.
Yep.
Sometimes you can't just see the big picture right away. You literally have to go to work for them to discover what they are, because they don't have much out there for ratings to look at. Uh, and the CSA score I looked at, because him being a contractor, he was contracted under two different companies.
Right.
So the one I was looking at was his good side.
Mhm.
So the other side, the one that was bad, is the one I got stuck on, and that's not the one I wanted to be on.
Yeah.
And it happens that way too. If you work for an independent contractor that is done like that, that happens.
Yeah.
I just had to bring it up. I needed to bring it out because that's one thing that this topic is we're trying to figure out the good, the bad, and the ugly. How's that?
Mhm.
You know?
Yep.
Adaptation. Let me ask you a question. When it comes to adaptation and figuring out where you're going to go, when you finally find yourself in a place that's less than ideal or maybe not what you really wanted, what do you think are some good ideas to keep in mind to turn things around, to change things? I mean, because in your case, the last company you just worked for, and I think about it. I mean, you were frequently let me back up. When you first started, you weren't having that much of a problem, and you weren't really finding yourself in the middle of a lot of downtime. Things were working. You were getting loads. You were making miles. Things were working. Everybody was happening. Everything was happening right with you. Then all of a sudden, I remember it's like night and day. We were talking on the phone one night. You mentioned how this trailer had a problem. The trailer before had a problem, and you felt like there was too many older trailers. So you suddenly had to change your thinking, and you suddenly had to make a decision. So walk us through that process. What actually was going through your mind when you finally realized you have to make yourself the product, not the environment that's around you? That position and that thinking. What happened with you?
Well, whenever this started arising, I had to sit here and think on it. I thought, I'm not clearing a paycheck worth taking and working for this company. That was the biggest decision I had to look at. Yes, I was home usually every weekend. Yes, I had a nice truck. Shoot, they gave me a brand new truck. Only had one other driver in it, which didn't drive very far in it.
Which means they trusted you.
And
Which means they trusted
that's
you.
exactly right, because not everybody just got to jump into new trucks.
Exactly.
And I appreciated it. But when you have a nice truck and you're driving that, but you're picking up trailers that other drivers have left behind that could have had this fixed all along, that's where it starts hurting, because then it causes you to have downtime. Downtime doesn't pay well, and sometimes it doesn't pay at all. I've discovered that while I was with them. That was one of my other cons to it. Be sure you research that. Talk to drivers that work for that company. They will say, hey, we get paid X amount of dollars for being down when we're broke down. Or, hey, no, it's not so good. And I will say I've made some rant videos on here, my channel. So please feel free to watch those if you haven't already. I promise you'll understand more about what I'm talking about on this issue.
Yep.
And why I made the videos.
Yep. Everything has its purpose, such as the purpose of this video. Let's leave everybody with something good. I mean, let's review basically what we talked about. We talked about in this show basically the do's and don'ts when it comes to when companies are less than clear what you're working for, what you're getting, what you're doing for them. I mean, when you find out that you're not getting what you should be getting, are you going to sit there and blame them, or are you going to blame yourself? What are you going to do? So my advice, ditch the blame game. Stop looking at everything as just you. You have to be the big boy. You have to do your research. You have to figure out that, you know what? Nothing's going to get better until I make that choice. Grumpy, you made that choice. How much better do you feel now?
Well, coming on here and talking about the way I feel about this and letting other drivers know that what they should do, it makes me feel a lot better, because I am sharing my knowledge.
Yep.
And that's what I want. I want to get my knowledge out there and be remembered that, hey, this grumpy sucker here, he knew what he was talking about. And we need this information. And I feel that I'm leaving a monument, so to speak, of what I'm talking about here.
Leaving a mark.
There. Thank you. Thank you.
When you're looking at when you're looking at companies, here's what I take. When you're looking at companies and you're actually thinking about the very thing we're talking about, How clear are they going to be? What are they going to tell you? How transparent are they going to be? Are they going to be about the problems they have? Here's some things to ask. How many miles a week can I get? Am I going to make good money or am I going to be struggling? What's your average weekly take-home pay? What's your
Right.
detention and layover pay? Those are obvious questions, right? Do you force dispatch? Can I refuse loads? How often will I be home? Those are obvious questions. But here's one most
Yes.
people don't ask. Do you pay attention to safety as if a DOT officer's in your garage? Do you care what condition your equipment is before it leaves? And what would you do if your equipment killed somebody else? When you get the answers to
Right.
those questions, you'll certainly feel a lot better when you get those answers, knowing you work for a company that cares. That's why I said earlier, make yourself adaptable, make yourself the product. Because if you worry about them and you don't worry about yourself, you become the liability and they could toss you out tomorrow. That's just my
Right.
advice. Take it for what it's worth. Any final thoughts,
Well,
guys?
I'd like to play a song as well before we adjourn for the day.
Okay.
If all is willing to listen to, I'm hoping it's a good song. If you like the song, let me know in my comments if you watch the replay.
Yeah.
The song's title is, of course, the same as the show is today. Is this trucking life worth it?
Yeah.
So with that being said, let's listen to my song.
Go ahead.
Woke up early, set my sights on the day. With a passion for safety, I found my own way. But whispers behind our backs took their aim. In a world of unfairness, it's all just a game. But I'm standing my ground, won't let it go. With truth in my heart, I'm ready to show. This fight isn't over, I will not back down. For every good worker will take on this town. Through the struggle and pain, together we'll stand, restoring the honor in this broken land. I watched the favorites rise up as I stood still, while the toxic tide had swallowed the good with a thrill. Putting in my time, they turned their heads away. But I know I'm the strength this world needs today. So I'll rise like the sun, through shadows I'll break. With every step forward, I'm more than they fake. This fight isn't over, I will not back down. For every good worker will take on this town. Through the struggle and pain, together we'll stand, restoring the honor in this broken land. So here's to the fighters, the brave-hearted ones. We'll build a new future when the old damage runs.
Love it.
Good song. Good song indeed.
I love it.
I hope so. I hope so.
Can
Worked
I
hard
wake
on
up now?
that. You're
You are the
funny there,
last-
Larry.
You are the last person that deserves to pick on Grumpy's music. Now, come on. Mr. Storytime over here.
Well,
Yeah.
are we done?
Bedtime story, man.
Is the live over?
If it
No,
was,
not yet. But
If
Oh,
it
Good
was,
Lord, buddy. What did,
man.
what did that have to do with trucking?
Larry, are you living? Are you beating heart? Are you breathing? I don't get the question.
What's
I
that?
didn't hear nothing about trucking in there.
I
If
heard.
you're going to play a
the-
trucking
the
song,
live-
make it a trucking song.
I heard a lot more about trucking in that.
the
Oh,
live
yeah.
today is basically talking about safety and working for certain places that, I mean, that's the whole purpose of the song. I mean, it's to boast out how I feel about safety with working with the company and how I was treated. That's the purpose of that song.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that song has to be directed straight at trucking. I mean, as you know, yes, I am a truck driver. I'm the grumpy old trucker. But not everything on my show is 100% all trucking related. Neither is my group as well. So,
That's true.
you know,
That being
I just
said,
want to say this, you know, everybody knows my motto by now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Lord, if it is, please try your best.
amen to that.
And if it is broke, use duct tape.
Good point. You can try. I mean, it works for a little while. It's a temporary fix.
Look at my tag down below.
There you go. There you go. All I can
That's
say
right.
is, guys, a good trucking job is not about finding the right company. It's about
Right.
finding the right place in life. You make sure you're the right driver. It's the right place. If
Right.
you have time, take your responsibility, do your research. Trucking is not a job. Trucking is a lifestyle. It's one that
That's
you
right.
have to take seriously and shape to fit you, not the expectations of others. So take
Exactly.
every moment of your time. Do
Wait,
the research
I've been
necessary.
doing this all wrong.
Larry, you know how to ruin a good ending. You know that?
Well, that figures, Larry.
I'll go one set. I'll go. I'll go one deeper. You had to ruin a wet dream. You know that? Hashtag. Just saying.
Larry,
Guys.
Larry, hashtag wet dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Guys,
no.
join us for more on these shows. We love bringing them to you. And if you got a function for news, if you want to know about how things go in trucking on the news side, check out truckincitymedia.com. We got your back with trucking news, insights, and opinions. What you say, Grumpy? Are we going to end this or are we going to carry it on?
I just want to add to this.
After
I'm going
that.
to say tune in every Sunday as long as I'm of good health and can be on here somewhere in between. I used to say 1 o'clock, but I'm going to say anywhere between 1 and 3 p.m. Central Time. Look for me, check it out, and join and come on in and enjoy the show. If you don't get to be on the live and watch the live, please, by all means, watch the rerun and, share it out. I'd appreciate it. And leave comments. Thank you so much.
We know what
If it
you
ain't-
know. We know what you know because you take the time to tell us. And
That's right.
how is your saying go, Grumpy?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
God bless.
Till next time, my friends.